All right, we've been talking about units and measurement and sig figs and dimensional analysis and all of that, but now we're going to focus specifically on measuring how much of a compound or an element we have. And so we're going to be focusing on what's called the mole. And the mole is the SI base unit used to measure the amount of a substance. And a mole is defined as the amount of atoms in 12 grams of pure carbon-12, which is 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd particles. Now, when we say particles, that's going to depend on the kind of substance. So if it's an element, then our particles will be atoms. If it's a covalent compound, our particles will be molecules. If it's an ionic compound, our particles will be formula units. We could even talk about electrons or ions. We could even measure something really big like how many pencils do we have or how many eggs do we have. So you can use Avogadro's number, which is 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. That's how many things there are in a mole. Just like when you use the term dozen, a dozen means 12 things, right? Well, a mole means 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd things. Now, the things we're going to be talking about are really super tiny things like atoms and molecules, which is why we need such a big number. So, Avogadro's number, definitely something you need to memorize, and it's going to become a new conversion factor for us where we can figure out how many moles of something we have, how many particles of that thing that we also have. Okay, so let's look at Avogadro's number as a conversion factor. So if we want to figure out how many particles of something we have, then we'll use Avogadro's number like this. 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd particles, so it could be atoms or molecules, per mole. And mole is abbreviated MOL. I know it's one less letter. That's just the abbreviation. So if we want to figure out how many molecules are in 3.50 moles of sucrose, we would start with what we know, 3.5 moles of sucrose over 1, and then multiply by our conversion factor, 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd molecules per mole. We use molecules because sucrose is a covalent compound. So here you can see our moles cancel, and so we're left with our units, which are molecules. So we would multiply 3.50 times 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. Now, when we're talking sig figs, okay, the conversion factors that we're using, they don't have sig figs. They are defined constants. And rule number, I think it was 5, said that defined constants and counted numbers don't have sig figs or have infinite sig figs. So it's always the very first number we start with that we get our sig figs from. And here, that number has 3 sig figs, so our answer should have 3 sig figs. Now, what if we want to go the other way? What if we know the particles and we want to find moles? Well, we flip Avogadro's number over. So we want molecules to cancel, so 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd goes on the bottom. So that time we would divide by 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. And don't forget, in your calculator, use that EE button. So you would type this in, 2.11 EE24 divided by 6.02 EE23. Okay, and again, 3 sig figs gives us 3.50. All right, let's work out an example together. Okay, it says zinc is used as a corrosion-resistant coating on iron and steel. It is also an essential trace element in your diet. All right, here comes the question. Calculate the number of moles of zinc that contain 4.50 times 10 to the 24th atoms. All right, so here's the number we're going to start with. 4.50 times 10 to the 24th atoms. Zinc is an element, so the particles are atoms over 1. That's the number we're given. Now we need to figure out our conversion factor. We're trying to find moles, so it goes on the top. 1 mole is equal to 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd atoms. So our atoms cancel. we divide by Avogadro's number, and in your calculator, you're going to get something that says 7.47508 blah, 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 right? We want to round to the correct number of sig figs. So we come back here to our original number. How many sig figs are there? There are 3. So we want to round our answer to have 3 sig figs, which is going to be 7.48 moles of zinc. And that is our final answer.